Second here.
And we're live. We're in
And
there.
good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Good evening, good morning, wherever you are on this beautiful blue planet. Is your brain in a jar? I feel like mine is. And it seems like the integration of tech where they want to drag us to across I wouldn't even, their finish line, not ours. Ours is more living free without hassle. But it seems that we just can't live that way, can we? Everywhere you look, it seems that it's like a full bunch of people with batons and shields trying to squeeze you into a corner, something made not of this world, by the way. Everything that we see is anti-human that's occurring. And it just seems that as we progress down this timeline, at least the present one, that the Rubik's Cube has been laid out for us to solve ourselves. If we're able to get through this Rubik's Cube, we'll get on the other side. And I got some great charts for you tonight about previous grand solar minimums going back 8,000 years. How intense will this one be? SOT.net dropped a uploaded NASA and European Space Agency sunspot forecast. And for 7 to 8 years, we're going to have almost zero sunspots coming in. Late 2028 to say 2037 or 2038, grand solar minimum, even both space agencies. I think the max was 12 sunspots. We're talking a 10-year period, not the regular 11-year cycle. This is something far grander, and I want to share those with you tonight. Ransom's been scraping the news, and there's so much to talk about. You know, the economy, whoosh, it's back up, it's down again, whoosh, it's back up. I mean, this whole thing is just nothing more than a scatter pattern to deflect us from truly harnessing the energies that are here around us. The increasing energetic flows are being, well, deflected through the combined efforts of news media, politics, militaries, and economy, all being pushed by the same hands from above. Are they from which set of family bloodlines, or are they archaic DNA brought through, and the DNA encodes the information from galaxies afar, dimensions within? It's a hard question to answer. These cycles have been again and again. You know, I was reading some accounts of beyond the ice wall of these explorers in the Revolutionary War period that had also visited Antarctica before it was discovered. And their accounts and tales also of, you know, being met by things that were far ahead of what would have been in the early 1800s after the Revolutionary War. So is the history and timelines that we're told what we're told? And how many times they were saying that after the persons they'd met? It sounds fanciful. I know it does. It's like an Admiral Byrd story, but centuries before that. Centuries before. Same thing. They talk about resets coming on a regular interval, and they're just part of the way that humanity exists. Some of it is natural, but then there's always some technological element that rides on top of it. And I do believe we're back at the same kind of juncture again. And they were very specific. 250 years prior was the reset time of their time. So we're talking about early 1800s, pre-Dalton minimum, or very close to it, around 1807-ish. So then wind 250 years back, and that's when the Great Reset for their time was. Tartaria, for an example, would have been that period of time that we all hear about. So we're only going back, you know, to the 1600s. Again, those two time frames overlap. That's why I wanted to bring you the charts here, and Ransom, take it away, because as we move through this next few minutes, I'm going to disappear here so I can send some links out to everybody. Thank you for joining tonight. I really want to queue up these charts. I want to make sure it's done properly. This is the most, I stumbled across these today doing some research, and I was talking with Craig Simpson at Radiant Creators, and we were talking about grand solar minimums and the timelines between. But we're on a 2,000-year cycle here, approximately. But we'll show the data, and then you make your own decision. So anyway, Ransom, thanks for joining me tonight, and take it away.
Nice. Yeah. You know, it's funny that you brought up Antarctica, because I keep seeing this news article about this nuclear weapons base that we had in Greenland. And the more I was thinking about that, well, for one, we're supposed to be having global warming. So how did it get buried in ice when they stopped using it? But on top of that, why would anyone with future planning put that base there um, in the way that they built it if they weren't expecting it to stay hidden in the snow and in the ice? And I'm looking at, I'm always surfing headlines. And I feel like we're Nostradamus. I mean, there's so many things in the headlines right now that we talked about years ago, last year, like we repeatedly bring it up. But when I see these articles that just prove, kind of bring the idea home so you can see that it's happening. Last year we were talking about how things were so sophisticated that the biological and the technological were merging into one. And now we're seeing, the little bit of advancements happening with that. So I remember the first one that I was looking at was just kind of like a motherboard connected to a petri dish that had some cultivation happening. They had cultivated some brain cells, and they were getting some kind of back and forth processing power out of that. Now we skip to the future, and we have just little robots running around with brains in the jar, and it kind of connects to the whole kind of rollout of the transhuman idea. I was also going across articles that were talking about how people's mentalities are being manipulated and changed because they're aware of 24-hour surveillance, and that in itself is kind of like that double slit, idea that things behave differently while they're being observed. So in the back of people's subconscious mind, they know that they're being spied on 24/7 every day, everywhere they go, every choice they make, every keystroke they put. But now we're just seeing the fruits of that. The spy agencies are they're firing the personnel because they're going more in an AI direction where we've joked about the AI overlords. But it is true that AI is literally taking control of every aspect of the human domain in probably ways that even us talking about stuff and reading about all the new tech and all of that stuff don't you know quite understand or even see coming. But whenever I see all of these different machines happening and different companies coming up, I know that the other companies are working on similar type technologies. And now we're just putting organs right in robotics. We're putting robotics right into organic beings. You could tell with Elon Musk that we're going in the direction of merging biological and technological things together. And then when you see this robot is like a reverse of what Elon Musk is showing. But when you consider that Musk and other billionaires are working on these humanoid robots, you would realize that they do have a plan in their mind for the future. And then you hear stuff like Zuckerberg telling people that in the near future, all of your friends will be artificial intelligence. There won't be, real connections happening between human beings anymore. And then you look at the craziness that you see across the headlines. In the way that people are behaving in the social environment and interacting with people. And we talked about this last week. It seems like slowly but surely the population is losing its mind, and it's like a cabin fever situation. So there's really nothing more to dream about. They're introducing the idea of extraterrestrials, AI, robots, super mass surveillance and biometrics control of your money and lifestyles. And meanwhile, people are still living their day-to-day lives, but all of that is accumulating subconsciously in the back of their mind, and it's altering their behavior to a point that we're going to see more and more crazy say out, like lashing out, I guess, from the humans that are behind the invisible bars of this technocratic system. And let me get I don't know what happened. For some reason my share button didn't work, but I think I can get it in here. But we're really going into a new era. So like those stories about people in far off distant times with technology and stuff, it's really intriguing. But we're going into a time where they're about to erase so much information, and I'm seeing it daily. um, the AI is wrong and it keeps being wrong. I saw Chat GPT earlier today. They were showing screenshots of it getting a story completely wrong where it thought that Joe Biden was still the president, doing his second term in the White House. And I keep coming across article after article where AI gives people bad information, where the AI information is wrong. And I've experienced this myself, where I tell my kid, hey, why don't you look up this? And he looks it up on his phone, and they give you an AI overview of any idea now. So it's basically, it fishes the internet for information. And just like whenever you ask it to make an image, the algorithm, the AI is limited to only things that human beings have thought up or created in the past and that is out there and available for it to use as data. So the same thing works with actual news, science, and all of these other things. It reaches out to the internet, which means that it's going to have a faulty answer, an incorrect answer, because it picks authoritative sources, and it straight up gets some information wrong, because it doesn't know how to read the human environment quite yet. But considering that we got little robots walking around with orange-sized brains in their head, I mean, we're far out there now.
Yeah, I'll agree. I've been using Grok quite a bit, and also it had given me incorrect information, and then I'll say, well, I'm reading it right here. You need to add this part in. And, oh, excuse me, I gave you the wrong answer. Well, if you didn't know that that was part of the story or included in as the information flow, then what? You would have just taken that as just the cold, hard truth, because that thing gave you the information. And what, we are going to get into a very confused world of the only thing that will be viable will be hard-coded books. And at that what point, you see every chapter of history, books are being burned and destroyed on purpose. Now, we just sit at this critical juncture now where in the 1800s or 1600s or 1900s, early 1900s, if books were destroyed, they were mainly replaced by books or hard print magazines, newspapers, etc., on paper, because that was the only means of communication. Yeah, the radio came out, Marconi and Tesla working together, and there was a lot of overlap between the frequencies that they both understood that were pervaded or be able to disseminate through this ether. But if books were destroyed in the, let's say, 1915 era, 1920s, they were replaced with other books. Right now, there's nothing to replace them with. So the amount of books that remains on the planet right now could very easily be wiped out to a good percentage with nothing to replace it. Think about China with the tariffs, even the machines, everybody's talking about, well, bringing the shoe factories back here. Well, whatever. Bring the clothing factories back. Okay. Did you know all those machines are made in China, even the basic ones that would allow you to do garment production? Those machines are made in China. And the milling machines, they're all made in China. CNC lathes, China. Everything, saw blades, China. Anything that can be made in an industrial process or used at the massive industrial level, made in China. The machines themselves. So think about the printing presses, the inks, that's all produced in China. Ink cartridges, China. So if we came down to a digital age, which we sit in now, all of the information that is contained within our realm as we speak would be wiped back to the 1970s-ish. And whoever was lucky enough to have bought books during that time, proper paper books, will be the ones that have the information. But then again, well, I would envision, maybe not this year or next year, but imagine if you become a grandfather and you're sitting there in your rocking chair with your pipe smoking, and the kids pop up on your lap and go, "Granddad, I learned this in school." And you'd be like, "That is absolutely false. Absolutely false. It was not like that at all. I lived through it. But no, the textbook said it. That's what our AI teacher told us." And I'd be like, "Hold on, let me get out the books here and we can read together." Imagine that kind of clash. At that point, will they say, well, books are no longer reliable? Those printed books, they're not as reliable as the AI because they were printed by humans, so they're no longer valid. This whole thing of information control. And there's one thing to control finances. Like, for example, in Spain right now, if you withdraw more than 3,000 US dollars, Not that you have to notify the bank, but you have to notify the tax authority that you took it out. So in America, the equivalent would be, I took $3,000 out. I needed to buy a new riding mower, and it was cash, and it was a great deal. One of my neighbors was moving. I needed $3,000. It was like a $6,000 machine. They're like, just take it for $3,000. Awesome, I'll get it. But then I would have to give that notice to the IRS that I took $3,000 out, and you have 24 hours in which to do the notice, or you're fined 150,000 euros if you do not report the 3,000 that you took out to the tax authority within 24 hours of you taking it out. This is where they're already going to Europe with cash. And if you're even close to it, like the letter of the law says 3,000, but if you're at 2,800, you're still close enough in the gray area that you could be reported for under withdrawals, so you don't have to file the paperwork. And it's up to the tellers themselves. If you draw out 2,700, oh, you were trying to go under on purpose. You were trying to get under that $3,000 limit. So we think that you were just doing it to avoid the paperwork and the registration with the tax bureau. So we're going to report you ourselves. Legally, they're allowed to do that. So even the money that you own, you don't own. And again, I wanted to come across I'll come to Coinbase and the hack that occurred there. Any of you out there got Coinbase accounts? OMG. The employees were bribed in different countries that were working at Coinbase to access all the data of everybody. If you got passport scans in there, they got it. If you got driver's license scan for your KYC, they got all of it. The only thing they didn't get was your private keys and your bank account, because they salted that, but everything else out there on the net. Anybody who's with Coinbase, all your private data, your driver's license, social security numbers, and your passports, if you decided to do that, it's all out on the net right now. So even these companies that are supposed to keep us the securest of the secure, blockchain, immutability, oh, we're going to do this with Hashgraph, we're going to do that with blockchain. They can't, that the top leaders of the industry can't even keep themselves safe. And this is the world they want us to exist in, with central bank digital currencies and all your biometrics, all 10 fingerprints, iris scans, vein scans in both hands and arms and forearms. They want to put all that into a database in Europe, and you're supposed to believe that that's going to be safe, that that's not going to be hacked. Come on. This is the world we're moving into, where even the smallest, and I know I don't have a lot of money, but to pull $3,000 out for a piece of machinery, that's nothing really. You know, you're looking at machines that cost $20,000, $30,000. So to pull out $3,000 to go get seeds, fuel, herbicides, what other, a couple pairs of tires, you know, you might need to do your truck tires, your mower tires. If you other, and the prices today, boom, you're right at $3,000 already, and you hardly bought anything. So to be able to hyperinflate away and then set these artificial limits through the hyperinflation is also a no good, because eventually this hyperinflation curve is going to ratchet up to the reporting requirements, where $3,000 will literally be a loaf of bread in the future. If we go this same trajectory where we're moving to, why do you think all the central banks are moving to gold? Because they know that A, it can't be poof, gone into thin air. But these reporting requirements are going to absolutely ensnare everybody in terms of they're going to want to know every single dollar you spend. And as we go into this digital currency realms, stablecoin issuance, standard, if you will, and then the CBDCs overseen by central banks giving it to the citizens, it's all tracked and traced. The very last thing they're trying to do is, for a better term, bring in the cash from the wild. Like that was the whole thing about Croatia when I was there. They were moving from the kuna over to the euro, and that was so sad to see how many people lost so much money because they had it in paper and they couldn't get to the banks in time. And you know, some people didn't want to report it because of tax. And, you know, every time you took it in and you had a stack of bills, they're like, where'd you get it from? You know, so it wasn't like you just go turn in your old paper money and get the new euro. You brought in a stack. They wanted to know where it came from, how'd you earn it, how much you get, what years you made it. And it was like ridiculous. Oh, by the way, I've been working for the last 10 years. I'm just like, every time I come home with spare change, I throw it in a drawer. And that's all I have. No, that's not acceptable. And the way they did, they waited till the very last days during the holidays over Christmas and New Year's for you, those last 2 weeks was during Christmas and New Year for you to turn in all the rest of your money. So they did it on purpose for the last people who are waiting. But all those people that had millions and millions of dollars combined lost it all. It just turned into worthless paper the very next day. What they were trying to do is bring the cash in from the wild and get you to report on taxes where that money came from. So, it doesn't matter if they're trying to jam a brain in a jar. And the more of these videos I see on these robotics, oh man, it is just moving at light speed. Or these things are 50 years ahead in technology and they're just unveiling it to let us see what they have already. I don't know, again, it brings us back to that same always debate. Is it 50 years ahead in technology or whatever it is? But the leaps and bounds on the robotics from, the bipedal stepping ones have gone from things connected to their heads on a thing holding up to doing parkour and running faster than a human on a parkour course, jumping 15 or 20 obstacles at lightning speed and ferocious strength with not a single fault. They would get a 10.0 in gymnastics if they were in the Olympics. That's what I've seen in the latest videos. It's scary, actually. You're never going to outrun that thing. You're not going to outmaneuver it. It's going to be faster than you. It will not stop. And now I'm looking and thinking, yeah, this is what they said in the Terminator 2. So now we're going to combine the Terminator with human intelligence and human physiology, and an actual physical brain is the capacitor for that thing and the computing power of it to run. I don't know. We need a few tabs or a couple drops to put in the brain and send it in the crystalline world. Maybe it'll love humanity, man. How about the flowers? Maybe the robots will start the flower power movement. If they got the synthesized brain, we can drop a couple shrooms in there and let them love the humans. I don't know. I'm rambling, dude. I'm still trying to put up some links. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll talk about sunspot numbers and grand solar minima in just a second here, but take it over, Ransom.
Well, there we go. Yeah, it's pretty funny that we're going into this era because it's like our brain is in the jar. We're the ones being tested, and you could tell that eventually they're going to be trying to sell you these products that they've been predictive programming on television. They've had several of them where a lot of the, I guess, life of the metaverse is, I know that's the term they're using. They'll have a new name for it, but it's basically the same thing, where you and your biometrics and your digital self are all the same thing. And eventually they'll start trying to sell you these ideas that they've predictive programmed as, that there's going to be this cloud and there's going to be more citizens that are uploaded than there are algorithms or AIs. And this is where we're going. So they're going to try to treat you on the cellular level for every disease, designer medicine for each and every person. But not only that, now that we can merge technology and the biology of a human, or even brain to computer interface, then they can start selling you the idea that there will be an afterlife. And this is what we've talked about before, where they've literally put themselves in the place of God on more ways, many different ways here, not only for you to worship and you to want all of their newest products and things that they're selling, but in the way that they're creating life from scratch and, changing the biosphere, but at the same time, adding a technological spin on it. And here was this other article right here, scientists working on, custom stuff. And that was last week. So you skip forward to this week. And now we've already got a baby born with a rare disorder that's life was saved, with genetic tampering. So they're going to sell it, like I've told you before, as a good thing. It's going to be a great thing.
And an AI doctor to boot, isn't it? It's an
that's
AI
right.
robotic doctor. Oh,
and if you don't trust it,
together.
If you don't trust it, you can talk to the artificial intelligence psychiatrist, who also will be in charge of your pharmacy needs and tell you what you need to be on or not. If you need any SSRI reuptake inhibitors or
negative,
feeling,
my friend.
and it's funny because since last year, I told you we kind of hooked up the antenna, and not to watch antenna TV, but to literally, see the brainwashing. What are the millions of people, especially poor people, watching? And it's nonstop advertisements for things that say that if you're a little depressed, how about if you take this, you'll be this. I mean, the list of bad things, the list of bad things on there are so much that I don't even remember what the disorder was to take it for. And the weird thing is they all have that. You have an upset stomach, you have Crohn's disease, whatever it is. There's a whole plethora of things that can be worse if you take their treatment for it. And then there's this are you feeling reduced concentration and memory? Is that the electromagnetic field changing, or is it the fact, like I was saying before, that knowing that you're being watched 24 hours a day is actually uh, messing with people's cognition and memory? Not to mention the fact that we now use these algorithms and Google and things like that as a hard drive that's outside of our body. So we don't even depend on memory. And it goes back to what you were talking about with the books. You might not remember, but you can read that book again. And most likely your brain will rewire itself to remember that book because you find it important. A lot of people don't understand that like, when, especially kids and young people, when they're going through school, you do not remember the things that you're not interested in. If you're interested in science and chemistry, you're going to remember that. You remember the whole class. You remember every lesson. It's because you're interested in that. So a lot of people aren't interested in complex mathematics. So, by the time they get out of high school, they only learn that long enough to take the test. And that is, even if their school is even, using their test scores, or they went to the, system of just letting everybody get through based on it makes them feel better. But I wanted you to look at this article here. Rogue communication devices found in the Chinese solar power inverters that cover the United States, which fits right into what I was talking about, with the people feeling like they're being spied on all the time. It's because they are. Everything is spying on them.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing is I was reading into those articles there and I was thinking, what if they had a force shutdown mechanism on them where it rendered the entire panel just null and void, where it actually destroyed like a self-destruct button. Imagine the damage it could do to a nation that had set itself out on solar panel. Now imagine if every solar panel in Europe had a Trojan horse in it where you press a button and it's suddenly inoperable, rendered inoperable there. I mean, that's massive percentage of generation of power in many countries, Spain included, Portugal. And what's so interesting is, England, a well-known destination for sun on the beach and a well-known sunny island, England, is now going to start blocking the sun anyway in this cold, wet environment. And, their solar panel production should decrease as well. So, I look at it this giant stage play. They want to sell us solar panels. Okay, I get it. But then you want to block the sun, so the efficiency of the panels in a dark, wet island is going to be diminished further. And that's where you get to do your geoengineering experiment. Like there's about 1,000 other places on the planet. You could probably do it first. That might have an impact. It's already cloudy. It's already rainy there all the time. But then when you come into the self-destruct mechanisms, imagine if, what was that movie with Bruce Willis where they had all those robots that were super powerful and then they, were laying in these beds and then he got out and he had a chance to press the button and like all of them fell down on the street and just the operating system ceased on all of them at the same time across the entire planet. I forget the name of that movie, but
Surrogates.
Imagine if that's the solar panels. Somebody within a realm somewhere in China has the ability to press a single button and every single solar panel on the planet stops that's made in China, because of that Trojan horse that's inside it. Like that would set us back incredibly as well. That would take nations to their knees, especially like Germany or whatever. They're up on they blew up the last, stacks for their coal burning power plant it was a couple months ago. And they're all cheering, yay, we don't have any more reliable power. Yay, look how advanced we are. Yay, we don't have reliable power. That is an insane asylum, lunatic, fringe thought where you are excited because you no longer have reliable power for your civilization or for society or your country, and you celebrate. the vulnerability of that system to not have reliable power, that they're excited about it. And then now this whole next, I guess, chapter of, are they going to bite their nails waiting to see if there's going to be more failures? Now, maybe that news article was put out on purpose to try to explain away the plasma penetration event that occurred in Spain with the incredible amplified UV that just really hit those panels and sent them into maximum uptake. Perhaps that's just put there like, oh, maybe that was the Chinese that did something in Spain, and maybe that was part of it. Maybe it wasn't all overload on the grid and the synchronization, because people are starting to pick up on it, that it was actually a natural event. It was a tear in the magnetic field. Like more and more people talk about this. So is that put out there as a propaganda scare that, ooh, there could be a vulnerability in solar panels to explain away the next time that there's a rip in the magnetic field, and that magnetic field line from the North Pole tries to punch back in somewhere and takes down another power grid? Could they blame it on the Chinese then for their secret Trojan horse in the panels, man? It wasn't a depleting magnetic field. Nope. Keep going to work. Keep paying your taxes. Just asking for a friend, man. Just asking for a friend.
You know, even worse than that, it could be even more sinister. You know, like
Ooh, go on, Sinister. Tell me
right
about it.
behind me is this article about blackouts and 162% inflation in Venezuela. They have these little areas, you know, like Cuba and Venezuela and different places that are like petri dishes where they could see what happens when the power goes out and people turn, you know, to their little local communist government there, and there is no help. But the, you know, the people in charge have power, and then you come across articles like this: much of the U.S. at heightened risk for summer
always.
power outages. Regulators warn. So, you know, it doesn't matter. And that's funny. The thing in Spain, it could have been even more sinister than that. They could have just turned it off. It could have been simply that the entire renewable energies field doesn't work as good as petroleum or nuclear backed power. I mean, if you think about it, it just really isn't. And then the idea, really, when you're trying to tell, you know, a world that is burning up, but at the same time you keep having problems with your solar panels, you know, if you have hail or snow, or it's not that bright outside like it's been in New Mexico for the past week, we've had diminished sunlight reaching the ground because of dust and wind. And then you know, you go a little south to us in Texas, and they're already in the triple digits in late May, which is perfectly normal for the South and the desert and the Southwest to have triple digit temperatures late May and June. That's the hottest time of the year in the Southwest. But they pretend like it's never happened, and then bet you money either a hurricane, thunderstorms, or just they'll claim there wasn't enough power, and then they'll shut down the entire thing. And you know, and then of course they start screaming climate change, even though it's the same climate, it hasn't changed. But it keeps happening. I mean, they do it for the cold, they do it for the hot, they do it for tornado season and hurricane season. And they just seem to want to get you used to, as an American citizen, being used to being without power, without a steady supply of things. And it's funny that we have a new administration that seems to be on the surface reversing these things, yet the media outlets keep fear mongering, or maybe it's not fear mongering, that you may be dealing without power. But it's not that far fetched. We just looked last year, we had that hurricane. Those people were basically unhomed and didn't have electricity. But you got, you know, the worldwide internet to help out. You got the Starlinks in there, which is another point. It's weird how the entire world is being blanketed with internet, but at the same time can't keep the lights on.
Yeah, there's an inverse there too. The more the world's blanketed with internet and signal frequency, the stranger the world becomes. Now, is that a natural interference pattern with our electromagnetic brains? Is it the changing magnetic field that this wire powered grid is trying to supplement something and re energize, at least on the surface layer of the planet? Because if you think about it, and these controllers that have been around for thousands of years understand the cycle. So what if there was technology that was available to remagnetize or create an artificial magnetic field band-aid, for a better term, from where you sit at like 1 meter off the ground all the way up to about, I don't know, 300 feet or so on the average above your topography where it is. Doesn't matter if you're in the mountains or you're in a valley, that 300 foot of vertical space above where your feet are on the ground. I mean, almost everywhere in the world now has either satellite coverage, which is beamed down signal, which would then, amplify that up to, several miles above your head, where that, 300-foot range off of cell phone towers and these things, 5G towers and transmission towers, all the way up to now multiple miles above the head. So there's different layerings of different frequencies within the lower atmosphere, literally down to ground level. Or is it to interfere with the human domain, literally in our physiology? Or is it to create an artificial frequency area where something can step out that's not normally able to exist within the bounds of this dimension that we sit in right here? And there's air in front of us. There's not enough electrical frequency in the air to hold state for an electrical frequency being couldn't just be here because, well, the mechanisms for it to exist aren't there, and unless you're in a very highly amplified 5G frequency cross grid somewhere, and that cross grid could create in that localized space a frequency field strong enough, holding state long enough, perpetually, basically, for something else literally to step into that space. Okay, but then if you as a human walk through that same exact location, well, you're going to be in for some kind of, crazy morning or afternoon or whatever time of day it is. Think about that. You got all these 5G towers. Now, Mark Steele talked about them being used as directional weapons and he developed the monocular scope for the, I think it was the Apache helicopter sighting system for the turrets and all those weapon systems that the pilots use for that single monocular. He developed that. So he pretty much knows what these things do in different types of systems. But he was saying they could be triangulated in. I was like, oh, okay. But they can triangulate onto a person and cause their brains to malfunction or cause them to have strokes, heart attacks, this sort of thing. But that was years and years and years ago. So now it seems to have evolved into overlapping these 5G frequencies from multiple locations. It's not just 2 or 4, it could be 50, beaming into a single location to create a frequency field in a very localized area. And again, that's just the ground base. Now we have it coming from the sky. So what's the possibilities of us creating an artificial environment for something else to step into that's not normally here? Now, and again, I would say it can only be done right now with the depleting magnetic field on the planet. If the magnetic field was incredibly strong, I would say this would be impossible even with their technologies, and they could hold state for just a very short period of time. But as it was explained-ish, the lower the magnetic field goes, the easier it is to amplify a local frequency area. There's an inverse with that. The higher magnetic field naturally goes in a really tight magnetosphere. It's more difficult to hold state on that because you're creating a different magnetic field and a different polarity in that regional space, literally feet, square feet, tens of square feet, whatever it is, a square block. But in a very, very low magnetic field, to be able to do that and oscillate that over and create that, loop right there is much easier in a low magnetic field. So look for the strangeness in the woo-woo to occur more when we are in very low solar activity periods. I remember when that tear through for the Spain power outage, there was almost no solar activity. Like at the baseline where it's 0 and you measure up 1, 2, 3, KP1, KP2, whatever it is, G1. That was almost every measurement possible off the sun was at a 0 state at that point that rip through came through and ripped down through the ionosphere down onto the ground level. That would make perfect sense because without the compression on the magnetosphere, it would just kind of get really wavy and kind of not compressed, and it would actually expand off the planet, and then you would get that tear. And if there was a magnetic field line trying to reestablish itself, that was usually in that looping field. If there was a rip in that, well, it's going to be tangling and dangling out there, going, where do I go now? Oh, I'm going to go back to the ground. I feel there's some minerals or something down there. Whoosh, and it just tries to reestablish itself wherever it can. Low magnetic field off the sun, like zero look, whatever. There's a huge coronal hole coming. That's not a problem. There's going to be magnetic. But as looking on the backside of the sun, I saw some guys that were, looking at stereo ahead there, and there's almost no sunspots coming around the backside. There's one big one and like 2 or 3 little small ones. But as those transit around the side, we are going to be at another very similar type of solar activity minimum coming up in about 2 weeks, when the same exact conditions were rife for that Spanish power outage with a rip in the magnetic field. The reason I tell you that is because at those low periods is when the highest push of 5G in a localized area can enhance those frequencies for the greatest field state change. And that's the direct opposite. You're looking for that inverse correlation. Very, very low solar activity, very weak magnetosphere or magnetic field allows us on Earth with our technology to ride on top of that and take advantage of that depleted field state to create our own in substitution, in lieu of it, in a regional area wherever they want to create it. So the inverse, when it's really tight magnetic field, when we got a lot of CMEs coming in and there's like solar wind, it's like things are pounding, it's the inverse. They're not able to hold that state or create such a very large effect because it's competing with something that's there already. So if there's no magnetic, if it's very little like interaction energetically going on between the star and our planet, you can substitute that in with and create another field within that. So look for the woo-woo to occur when we get to almost no solar activity. You're going to watch them just flip the switch on a lot of these things. They're going to be, and I'm just wondering, is it the people that, are they really going insane because of low magnetic field? Or is it all these triangulated and interfering amplified energies on purpose through cities and through partially out into, neighborhoods and not really countryside, but that transition zone between it? Like the amount of car accidents during these times just goes through the roof. Craig was talking about that because I was talking to Craig Simpson over at Rating Creators, and he was talking about when we get into low activity, he was also pinging on the same thing, like the amount of auto accidents during these low periods of what we consider depleted magnetosphere or weakened shell casing around our planet. It's the best way to describe it. That the amount of auto accidents increases exponentially. And insurance companies have some sort of algorithm that they follow solar winds and they follow space weather to know how many accidents they will have terrestrially in advance of about 3 days. So there's something with that. Now, was it ever like that where we had this and we could definitely correlate auto accidents with solar winds and solar activity? I don't think so. This is a brand new thing in a different depleting magnetic field. But whatever's happening, the woo is starting absolutely for sure and amplifying. Every time we're going to come into a zero state on whatever the sun's doing up there. When it goes to baseline zero on the KP and the wind velocity, and even the protons or the electron or the cosmic ray, whatever, when it goes to the baseline zero, we are going to get some freak show happening on the planet again and again and again. So welcome to 2025 through 2035. Should I ring the bell, Ransom? Ding, 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 ding. Get it on.
I was thinking about that. So that really fits into the predictions of this summer. Let's say you have a group of people that are affected by what you were talking about, but they live their life on social media on their phone. And all of a sudden it's very hot this summer and some of the major cities across the US, kind of like what they're talking about in Texas, hotter than the Sahara Desert. But just think about, everybody's hot, they're on their phone, they're unhappy with the recent changeover in politics, shall we say, and then a certain somebody gets their sentence reversed in the middle of the summer this summer, and then you see rioting and burning down of stuff. And then to another point you were talking about, kind of to circle around back, you were
Oh, wait,
talking
I'll
about
start with the heat always does that. Remember in New York City when it got really, really record temperatures and people were trying to cool off in the fire hydrants, like the violence just went through the roof with the heat.
right. What if you give them another trigger though that makes them feel like that they should be upset at the same time there? Um,
Yeah, wow, you're adding fuel to the fire. No pun intended.
Right. And then also you have this, you were talking about how the Chinese could, possibly could shut down anything, but actually, think that may be why they're giving over their stuff to Pakistan, because they are a neighbor. So if they're giving over stuff, and then it's weird that the US has been dropping planes off in the ocean. There's like 4 of them now. Just accidentally dropped it off in the ocean. And then you have the Chinese kind of getting rid of their old junk too. It's almost like they're preparing to, I don't know, have a new uh, combat arena with new weapons that just came out, maybe this year or the next. And then you have these Pakistanis using up the old stuff. This is a good way where you can trigger things to happen in a proxy way, so you don't have to be right in there. And then I think
And we need
right,
new stuff.
right,
Oh, do we have some super chats coming through? I think we
right.
do. Awesome Amente.
That's what I was say. Ryan has some super chats for us there.
Yeah, throw them up there, Ryan. What do we got? Someone, hey man, someone, thank you. Always with us on the weekends, always with us here. All right, here we go. Some screenshots. Someone buying us 3 double espressos. That'll keep me shaking through the night. Missed you this week. Yeah, we missed last week. I was at a conference with Bob Kudla, and we were talking about economic conditions. Maybe I'll send a stock chart over there. It's just real quick one I put together after going to the conference to try to make heads or tails of this Bitcoin M2 money supply, reverse logarithmic Bitcoin top coming here in June or so. I'll throw that on for you. And Ransom, I'll let you respond here. The info is good and filled with food for thought, and then action for the future. Like what would you think is action for the future for us, Ransom?
I would think this summer, you would keep everybody close, and I've also read articles talking about, not too many people are flying places. The road trips are increasing everywhere, so people are choosing to drive around, which is another thing that adds to this weird trigger. Whenever you have a summer with, I'm going to say, social engineering involved, and then you add other aspects to it, maybe what you were talking about, people just feeling bizarre in general, and the way that
With road rage and traffic jams and heat. Love it.
right. Well, I'm expecting to see some increased riots and things. It's going to be a lot like 2020 probably this summer.
All the
And then,
teams.
we might even see new robots out on the streets because, they've already deployed the robot dogs to the border. So they're already walking around there, and it won't be long until they're armed. and then into policing. That's the place we're in now. Was that all the going on there with the super chats? Or they're not super chats, they're biased coffees. What happened here? My feed went dead. Anyway, I think it's about time for commercial here in 5 minutes. Any last thoughts before we get into raccoons with meth pipes? If you don't think things are weird enough, there's, the wildlife are now doing the drugs along with everyone else. Right here. See behind me that nice little cute raccoon with the meth pipe that's been going around. You imagine. And no wonder. But that's okay. If all your friends are AI, it doesn't matter, because that's all our friends are going to be. Matter of fact, I'm not even sure if David Dubine's a real person because I met him on the internet. Oh no, wait, I did meet him in person one time. I forgot.
But twice,
Are you-
man. We went up to Tim Pool, and then we were at Diamond's thing. You've seen me 2 times in person.
But that
Twice,
could have
my
been
friend.
that could have been a brain in a jar. You don't know. I could have sent my surrogate, which is the name of that movie you were thinking of there with Bruce Willis. It's just I'll send my brain in a
Surrogate.
jar
That's it. You have a
and
good
just
memory.
go over there. Well, until I need it.
Until I need it, yeah. Oh,
And
man.
then we were joking before the show that we might get, if you guys feel like buying us enough copies, we might spend it on the Luigi musical and go hang out with some of the weirdest people on the planet that will probably be attending there. I mean, can you just imagine the people that want to go see the musical when they don't even know how it ends? They don't even know how it ends yet.
I don't know, Ryan. This Teams is annoying. Teams, you're terrible. You're gobbling up like 750 megabytes on my computer to run your garbage. So I'm going to switch over to Telegram, Ryan. I got some more stock charts to send you over for the rest of the second hour. But yeah, you know, what's real anymore? I've seen some amazing things that are on AI that is so baffling that is it a human writing that, or is it just, you know, they're starting to really blur the line between what is real and what's not. So for, like you say, anything that happens from this point forward is kind of just, you know, throwing sand up in the air in a strong windstorm, and, you know, good luck. Hopefully you don't get any in your eyes. And it's kind of the way it's going to be moving forward here. So maybe that's why I'm glad I went to see Bob Kula and all those guys, because it was in person and I got to meet and chat and talk to some people. But had it been the same online, no, definitely 0% would have been, you know, versus hanging out with people. That was the coolest thing. Like when we went out for dinner and stuff, 0 of us had phones, none, for hours and hours and hours. Nobody had phones. Nobody checked their damn messages. Nobody did anything. It was just like a chance for humans to get together and talk again without being on devices. That's one thing I noticed right away. Like nobody pulled out their phones for hours when we went out to dinner, you know. Things were packed everywhere. It was like a Friday night, so we had to drive around to a bunch of different locations. By the time we sat down and everything, like nobody brought a phone out, which I thought was real cool to go person on person again like it used to be. But then it was prom night. That's why it was so busy at every single restaurant at the town we're in Murfreesboro. Everything was like, all the proms were going on for all the high schools, right? So everybody was out on their dates with all their dates, right? So that was the funniest thing, because they brought their parents. It was like I don't know, all the grandparents, the parents, everything. But everybody else was on the phones the whole time. It was like they weren't even joining as a family to do anything, because everybody was on the phones the whole time. It was really interesting to kind of look into that other, you know, it was, I'm glad I got to meet some people in person, including you, Ransom.
Yeah. No, that was cool going out there to the Tim Pool thing, because it's they're so far back there. You know, you would think that they'd be downtown somewhere in a high rise, and then you get out there and they're way out in the woods. They have to, you know, drag somebody out there. They got their own security out there so that bums don't wander in on their little party they got going on. So you think we should go to commercial here and then come back and talk about our nuclear powered robots that we're launching into space?
Oh man, I think that would be the best thing ever. That would make me have the best day of my life ever when I get to see those. So yeah.
Right. Then next time you see Starlink, you're wondering, well, is that a bomb? Anyway,
That's on the top of my house, man. Don't be threatening me like that.
How do you feed your families when the shelves are empty, the stores are shut, and there's no food available? What is the fastest, easiest, and most productive foods to grow? What is the quickest way to get somebody who has no skills at all up and running and producing very quickly? If you understand that we're at a point in history where it is no longer optional to be growing your own food. If you're like really freaked out and concerned because you've never grown food before and you don't have any skills, you don't know how to do that, but you know how important it is, then I want to let you know, however you stumbled here, you're in the right place. My name is Marjorie Wildcraft. I'm the founder of the Grow Network, and I have been the female leader in the survival and preparedness space for the last 20 years.
How to grow lots of food, even if you have no experience, are older and out of shape. This is for people who want the fastest and easiest ways to produce healthy and delicious meat, eggs, and vegetables. Because you know that growing your own food is like printing your own money. During this webinar, you will get status of global food shortages, how long the crisis will last, how much space you need to grow food, easiest, highest calorie foods you can produce, a complete plan for producing all the food you need, how to get started today, regardless of season. Marjorie will show you the fastest, easiest, and simplest ways to produce calories and nutrition, especially in a crisis and/or grid-down situation. The assumption is that you have no experience and you need to start producing food immediately. The most popular part of the webinar is the Q&A session at the end. So please come prepared with your questions.
Don't forget to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. And thank you for all the support.
And we're back, I think. Uh-oh, you have to switch it manually. Here we are. I thought it would just disappear, but it didn't.
It didn't fade away. Should've
Yeah,
had a
so
rock band.
supposedly they're going to put up these nuclear-powered robots. So along with your internet, we're just going to have these. And you know what's funny is I brought this up because wasn't it last week? I don't know what happened with it because I didn't check in. But that old Russian nuclear, was it a nuclear thing or was it just a big satellite that came back that they were sending to Venus? And then now you think about these nuclear-powered ones coming back down to Earth. Yeah, here's the other one. Half-ton spacecraft lost by the Soviets in 72 is coming back home. And it supposedly landed last week. So just with thinking about that, and then you look at this picture of, here it is. It looks like a golf ball with cameras. But it's basically a bomb that's supposed to help us out with national security.
Oh, the excuses they give. Hey, Ryan, can you cue a couple charts up here? Ryan's got
Right.
something for us. He's going to. Yeah, I am lagging, even though I have. How about the other one first? There you go. All right, Bitcoin super fans here. As I was with Bob Kudla this week or a couple days ago, that last weekend, there's a couple factors. And then I also do a lot of research myself because I'm very curious how quickly this roll into us being controlled by digital money is going to occur. It's very important to know the timelines, at least have a good gauge of them, because then you can kind of protect, because they're going to force it. They were trying to do the star on the ID kind of thing, and there was a timeline with it. A lot of people didn't do it. There's still not enough for the entire thing. So now they're pushing it off again, and there's different ways to go through airport security without your little star on your license, because not enough people did it in time. So they still can't make it not doable, because I think they said there's still 35 or 40% of the people don't have it yet. So to try to put a nationwide thing like you can't fly if you don't have it, well, that's 4 out of 10 people. That's not going to work. So anyway, we're going to be eventually scooting over to this digital currency here and the stablecoin issuance. So bottom left, that yellow line and that big yellow arrow, that is the global money supply from all governments across the entire planet. Not American only. It includes the EU, it includes China, it includes every central bank that prints money for their nations. So that's a combined total of all the global money being printed, forecast, because obviously they're selling treasury. We sell treasuries. Other persons, they also sell their different T-bills of their nation the sales are already, kind of baked in there on what they're going to be offering in the future. They advertise that next month we're going to sell 10 billion or 100 billion. So they already know the total global money supply going out approximately 60 days. It could vary a couple days, but that yellow money supply there is how much new liquidity is going into the globe. And somebody found out, Raoul Paul, shout out over there, uh, that Bitcoin lags this by 107 days. Real Vision with Raoul Paul was the one who really started to put these metrics together, and then others pounced on top of it. And then I found another dude who does logarithmic scale types of look. So what you're looking at is the Bitcoin price in the blue at the top there. And what you're looking at is the forecast of the global M2 money supply below it. And I put the arrows in earlier today to demarcate where those little ticks up in price are taking us. And it does pretty much look like it's on the money at the moment. So if we do follow that and those trends continue, there's going to be a little downturn here for a couple more few days, and then it's going to go vertical. And then it'll taper off a bit for that's a week, and then it'll drop off. But then each time it drops off, it's going to continue scooting further north and north. So apparently, according to this, Bitcoin should be around 160,000, somewhere around the summer solstice or so, maybe a little after first week of July. If this trend continues, and I'm just saying if it does, and if the global money supply comes out as it's supposed to, if it does, it seems like this chart is tracking. These two different metrics are really tracking the price forecast based on the amount of extra money that's out there that people can then buy and sell crypto. Now, here's also an interesting thing. Different dude who came up with a different way to try to ping the metrics on Bitcoin cycle tops. So on that right side chart, that little thing that looks like a half a pie there, it's an inverse. This is a log scale. It's not the same way where you look at the chart where it goes up and down. This is a log scale. So it's actually got a curve to it. So it's inverse. When those candles touch the blue line, that is the top in the Bitcoin cycle. So Ryan, could you go to the wider chart? So I'm going to wide you out to a 5-year chart from this one here. So yeah, there you go. So if you were to take the time, which many people have done, where those candles touch the blue line, that is the cycle top at the highest Bitcoin price since 2016. There's an overlay on that that's been done by many persons. So you can, if you have the time and you would like to do it yourself, and yes, that's my Fibonacci sequence. I don't like all the colors, so I just do black lines, and generally they'll hit those lines in a numerical fashion, where that kind of ping and then come back on. But we are just waiting for those candles to drop down to the blue line. So when those candles hit the blue line, and we are at the top on that yellow M2 money supply, when those two overlap together, when you get those double signals that we've reached top liquidity, and that candle touches that blue line, in my opinion, not financial advice, but that is two massive indicators. It is time to get out because it is going to crash. It'll pull back 30-40%, and then we are going to run through the end of September and maybe October. So we're going to pull back in the summer, big, huge, heavy after this, according to those who follow charts. So this is just an indicator for you if you're looking on the timing of everything. Now, again, not financial advice. It's just two of the biggest signals ever to occur since cryptocurrency has been trading. And if these two overlap, then it's a pretty good signal that might be time to exit your position and then put option in, put some calls, take some put up.
So you're telling me that when everybody's going weird in the middle of the summer, a bunch of people are going to be moving their money around and nobody's going to really be noticing?
You pinged it, man. I was going to bring that up, but you beat me to it, because that summer of chaos is going to be a summer of billionaires made as well during this transition of wealth. This is a money transfer. And the more chaos that can be created during the summertime and the riots, the power outages, the whatevers, it's a numerous checklist that they could do and run through society for everybody to be distracted, right?
Right.
And the money's just going to move the whole time, and nobody's even going to notice that. It's just going to come and go. And there's so few people in crypto anyway that when this rollover occurs simultaneously and all these things happen, I would go short after that. Definitely put options in there, whatever you're going to do. I mean, if you know that market top's in there and you know it's going to fall 10, 20, 30%, you could probably go short. And also, not financial advice, but just if it's going to drop and you know which direction it's going, you could make some money if the price falls.
If
But
the
nobody will be doing that. They'll all be arguing and fighting in the street, and it's going to be a summer of distraction. I prefer to focus my energies, and shall we say it, my Think and Grow Rich book here, I prefer to focus my energies on abundance, wealth, and success. I even have a little paper right here. I attract success and abundance into every aspect of my life. That's my mantra. Every time I'm sitting at the computer here looking up, that comes up to me. You can focus your mind on anything you want to. It is your life. You can focus on anything you want. And if you want to focus on the distraction and the chaos and the anger and the violence, well, that is your choice. It absolutely is. But for me, I have no place. Don't waste my time. Don't waste your time. This anger, this hate, don't waste your time. Focus on something else that's beneficial for you and your families, for your communities. There's so little time. And to squander it on that type of low vibration, activity, that's what they want you to do. That's such a disservice to humanity. But to get you in that ball of whatever, I just say no. And I just prefer to use my mind and frequency and the way my vibration is holding and looking at different things for success and trying to find these opportunities, because it's going to get kind of dangerous in the future. But there is opportunity in the danger. That's why the Chinese say wei ji. Opportunity and danger. It's the two parts of the character that snap together and create a single word. So what are you going to focus on this summer? You're going to focus on following the riots in the streets and just like gobbling up your energy and time on that? Or are you going to use your mind to focus on building a skill or building wealth? I mean, building happiness, building relationship. I mean, there's so many things that can really benefit our lives, your life, your family's life. It's just, I prefer to focus on those things myself. So that you already see where my mind's going for that. This thing sits right on my desk with me here. Hard copy, no less, because if this ever goes down, these guys knew what to do with how to harness frequencies in the early or the late 1800s and the early 1900s. It doesn't matter what time era we live in. This is still just as valid in 1900 as it is in 2030. Your mind takes you down the frequency path and the universe responds with you. Hell, I'm totally safe out here. There could be a war that's completely slips by me, and my mind and frequency will actually split this dimensionality where I would literally be invisible to them walking around me, because our frequencies are so not matched. That armies could come through of angry hordes, but the vibrational frequency, if you're holding at a higher state, I could almost see how that ether blends in where you won't see each other, because you're in different realms, literally, of vibration and frequency field pattern. Why would you choose that other low vibration? I just, again, it's your choice. It's everybody. It's always your choice. Like, why do you wake up? I had the greatest day I've ever had in my whole life today. Did you? The most wonderful day I've ever had. I'm so blessed, so thankful, so grateful. This is the best day of my life right now, here, right now. So thank you for sharing it with me. See, that's where my mind is all the time. Like, so I'm so thankful. Thank you for the green tea that I'm drinking here so I can continue to talk. I'm so happy I have this green tea. Like, even the little things, just to be thankful for everything you have. I'm so blessed to have a computer where I can even talk to people and have an income coming off of this and being able to chat with people. I'm so thankful for that. And again, thank you for being here tonight. And like, the more you start to think like that and talk like that, you feel the vibration in here. It's just rising up. And these news stories, because I need to exist in this dark soup, but I don't want to take part in it. But I gotta kind of like put some rubber gloves on and dip in and like get a nugget out and wash it off somewhere and then present it to people. But otherwise, I don't want to be in that ick. So I don't have to be. My mind's a little bit different. I kind of cleanse myself. I take my shoes off. I walk outside after I got to go through the news for the day. Because I remember, who was that? Crowder, he was talking about the same thing. He's like, man, I got to listen to that NPR radio to get the opposite view. He's like, oh, it's like nails down the chalkboard. I just need to go out and decompress after I have to listen to that just to get ready for the news show. Well, it's the same thing. Like Ransom would probably, I'm going to ask you, would you attest that, man, going through all this dark news, man, there has to be a way to get out. And the only way I can do is like, just be thankful for what I have and be super grateful that I'm not there. I'm not in that situation, that I'm super, I have all these things, that I have safety, I have food. Can you imagine that? I'm so thankful that there's no hordes of marauders coming to raid my house tonight, that I need to sleep in my clothes to try to run away in the middle of the night. I'm so grateful I don't have to experience that. Like if you're just coming at it from that bountiful thankfulness, I mean, your it's just very different. But maybe I'm going on too much here, Ransom. Thanks for coming back in and alleviating me of my happiness.
I was going to do exactly that. I'm going to alleviate you of I'm going to bring you back into the ick, because I have
No, don't keep me out of the ick, dude. You gave the icky to yourself.
I have this weird conspiracy theory that, when I look through the articles, I'm always questioning what's the reality of this. Now, I'm not questioning crime statistics here. Oh, that's not the right thing. I hit the wrong person's thing there. Anyway,
oh wait,
you live over there.
Hold on. I thought I saw some super chats coming up here. Can we see that again? Can you pop those back up? Thank you so much. Buy me a coffee. Civilization Cycle podcast. Who that? Someone chirping in here. It said chirping in here, talking about the batteries. Yeah, David, did you find better batteries in the Rayovac? Yeah, the rechargeables that I have. I will never use Rayovac as long as I live. I did a whole video on those things leaking like 3 years before the warranty was up. Yes, I did. I found better batteries. I'll never use Rayovac again, but I'm really only going to use the rechargeables once again. Like once those disposables, like those are for trade for me. I will never try to use those because I have disposables, or excuse me, I have rechargeables. So I got, hundreds of batteries that, AA, AAA, whatever. I would be happy to trade those. So yes, I found better batteries, and thank you for the double espressos.
All right.
I thought you'd have a battery comment, man. I know you.
I do. I
please
actually do.
I knew you did.
All right, so here it is. I was gonna tell people this because I watched your video the other day, and this is one of these flashlights. They come with this. I forgot the size of it, but it's I don't know, like 2.5 inches long. It's rechargeable. They come with these flashlights, and I found that weirdly, these batteries that come out of China for the solar lights, they last forever, and they fit in all of your gear. If you have the same size, it's the same size battery that fits in all these flashlights that you can get. And not only that, the solar light itself is a recharger. So I've been experimenting on this several times where I put the regular rechargeable batteries from these flashlights into the solar light. And sure enough, in about a day, it's fully charged over and over again. And you can do this perpetually for a really long time. I've noticed that the solar lights, they kind of fade in charging in about a year, depending on, but I found several of them that year after year, they're super bright. They keep recharging. I also found this weird thing. I got a bird feeder that comes with a camera. It's supposed to be 2K, so you could take great pictures of the hummingbirds. But the camera sucks. It's more of a spy camera. It has audio, night vision. I don't know any hummingbirds that come out at night. But regardless, the camera's not so good. But it has this little solar panel that fits right into most phones. So I went out there and I left it charged for probably about 30 minutes. It gave my phone about 25% charge. And that's not even a product that they're selling for that reason. And then, you were talking about what are people really thinking about? Well, I'm looking around and I'm seeing all the people that are slightly older than boomers that are still around. Guess what they're doing? They're fixing their houses. They're doing all the repairs. It's just funny. So I started working on my roof. I have a room that leaks. I started working on it. They saw me tearing it down. Then the guy next door builds a shed. The people next door, they're fitting their house for new windows. Everybody all of a sudden is now home improving everything. So when times do get maybe a little rough, guess what? They've already taken care of all of those problems and they don't really have to worry about it. Now, to get back in the ick over here, check this out. you're safe out there and there's no hordes right now, but they're ranking your beautiful state as the fourth dangerous in the U.S., followed by other states. Now, Louisiana has New Orleans in it, or New Orleans, however you want to say it. I know it's New Orleans down there, but
New Orleans.
yeah. So they're number 3, followed by Colorado. You think,
Yeah.
what a beautiful state. It's the second most violent state to be in right now. Now you got to ask yourself, why is it that these states with, by the way, predominantly left politicians in, all of a sudden have all this super high crime rate? So New Mexico, where I'm at, is number 1 on the violent crime rate. We're the most dangerous state here. And then I wanted to bring up this too, because
I'd like to respond to that too after you're finished here.
Okay, well, I feel like there's a little bit of propaganda. I'm not arguing with this crime statistics because I know they're coming out of like Albuquerque, Memphis, the bigger cities, Nashville, Knoxville, in Louisiana. I'm sure it's New Orleans, and Shreveport, stuff like that. So I'm not really surprised. These are mostly Democrat-run major cities that are going to have crime. But on top of that, they have a lot of extra crime that wouldn't normally be native. I'll just put it that way. And then you have this, I don't know, we predicted this, but kind of in the week that we were off there, did you see the thing about the Newark airport shutting down and they don't have enough air traffic controllers? The whole airspace was closed. And then, now they're telling people it's not safe to fly in different areas. And then you have,
isn't it the third airport in America that got shut down? And then the Newark airport shut down 3 times. And then, then there's 2 other airports now that are being shut down. It's just like, again, this whole great reset thing of you're going to only fly, 1 medium haul flight every 3 years seems to be coming to more fruition by the day, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But at the same time, in the background, you see, wrong article, but you see this brand new flying machine, world's first blended wing passenger plane, flying 250 people in living room comfort to launch on a major airline. And I want to show you this video. So they show this old Boeing right here, but look at the shape that they transform it into. The thing's playing a little slow. It's a UFO. It's the classic UFO shape from the front profile. Everybody's seeing these drones and UFOs. What's really happening is not only the deep state, but the regular military industrial complex and the big commercial airlines, robotic companies. All of these people are coming out with the next level technology. And what you're talking about, it being 50 years in the past, even the corporations themselves, when they put out stuff, they never put their good stuff out to the public to see yet. They just all of a sudden come out with a new product that revolutionizes the whole industry. That's what we're seeing from end to end, is a whole upgrade, a changeover, and it all fits in. People think, well, these are unrelated topics, but they're not really. All of these topics, from your crypto to your biometrics to how you travel the world, what you invest in, how you eat, where it comes from. It's all being tipped over, and they're doing it in such an incremental way that it'll happen exponentially until you just don't understand the world you live in. Well, people that watch this show might, because we're giving them an inkling all the time. We're telling them trends that are about to happen. And over again, we've talked about things that within this next 6 months or year became a complete reality, so that people can't argue that I'm a conspiracy theorist. You literally got a robot running around with a human-like brain in a jar, just, a year after they barely were admitting that they were integrating microchips and brain tissue for like a PC style thing or on a desktop thing. And then you have on the other end, Elon Musk there's now another person that has taken the blessing of a Neuralink implant. He surfs the internet. He orders all his food online. He chats to people. This is a disabled person, but if you think about the way that's rolling out, that is perfect for the other guy over in the metaverse that wants everybody to have AI friends and for you to live in an uploaded fake world, so that you don't actually look at the declining situation around you. It's the great distraction. Everybody will be plugged in while they turn everything off around them that makes us human, except for these little pockets of agrarian style, individuals and groups that want to grow stuff and are still into preparing for the future when maybe there's not electricity or robots to wipe your butt. It seems like the bait and switch. There will be robots in the future. There will be all this technology, but it won't be for you everyday people. It'll be the policing implement, the spying implement. And I kind of joke with my 4-year-old daughter. Every time we go to the ATM, she says, "Is that the robot that gives you the money?" And that's exactly what's happening. That's what's going to happen. And most of it's going to be spent online on things that are not real. That's where we're at. We're in a
Yeah,
fake
if I had a
world.
robot, I could line that thing up for about 50 chores in advance already. I need a robot on the farm out here,
Well, if you're
We
rich
could
enough,
work in
you
the
will
dark.
have that help.
Yeah, could I say something about Tennessee? I mean, that's such a misleading article there. A, it's a concealed carry state. A lot of people don't mess around because it is a concealed carry state. But secondly, like I've been through Chattanooga, never went to Memphis, been to Nashville, Murfreesboro, Knoxville. Nothing ever happens there to me. I mean,
Right,
not that
it's
I,
located.
I'm looking for fights or anything, but I mean, you think the way that is that you're just walking around, something's going to happen to you. And I can say that it just doesn't. Tennessee, for me, in my opinion, is one of the safer states to live in.
You sure there's not meth smoking raccoons in your state?
Well, there's a few of those, but they kind of stick in their own. They stick in their own kind of nest over there. They don't really come out. Smith, you actually have a crack smoking raccoon.
This is the world that we're
That's
in,
in
man.
Tennessee. That could only be in Tennessee. Is he
Is
married
it
to his cousin?
Yeah, he must have a cousin in Tennessee. This one's from Ohio.
Oh, okay. See,
No, I'm just kidding.
but it
yeah,
is really safe here. I really do not. I mean, the scary thing for us out here might be some coyotes or some wild dogs or something, right? But if they're using drugs, they generally stick to themselves because somebody will call the sheriff on them and they're going to get in more trouble or they're going to have a problem directly with you, and then things are going to get solved in a pretty expedient fashion. So they generally just stay by themselves. They stay in their clique, their crew. They have nothing to do with you. They're not going to come up and rob you generally. They don't want to be your friend. They don't have anything to gain. You're never going to want to talk to them and hang out with them. Like they're just like oil and water separate. Again, it's the vibration and the frequency. They know, they can just sense that you're not one of them. And I can sense that I'm not one of them either. So we just kind of don't cross paths. So there's no need to. But, if you're in a big city, hell, I've been in Nashville heaps of times, downtown. I've never had any problems there. We walk everywhere. I mean, maybe it's situational awareness where I do look around when I'm walking, but I really don't feel threatened. I felt way more sketched out in New York City than any of the cities in Tennessee, period, man, like times 10. Although I haven't been to Memphis, though. I haven't been down to Memphis. I haven't even driven through it.
Don't.
James Ewan, 15 double espressos, another great show. You see? Thank you so much, man. Keep that positive vibe coming, James Ewing. I know a David Ewing. He's a CPA. Are you related to him? Anyway, thank you so much for the double espressos. We're gonna start shaking through the evening here.
Is that Ewing, like from remember that old show that used to be about oil? What was it? Dallas or something like that? They had the Ewing.
Dallas. I remember that. That was a popular show back then, wasn't it? I think it was like the number one rated show back in the day.
Right, the Ewings and all their millions, billions now today.
It was a soap opera about oil barons. Wow.
Oh, that reminds me. I wanted to ask you about this because, I was watching the news right before we came in here, and they were talking about the new legislative session here in New Mexico where they're trying to ban oil, gas, and fracking. And they're trying to do it in a hurry before the next governor, because I think they feel like the next governor is going to open all that up instead. So that's what you need to watch for. There's going to be a bunch of left-leaning states that try to close down energy, because they're still fighting in the same program. Like a few years ago, we were talking about, hey, look, they're shutting this down. You're probably going to be freezing over there in the UK. And then they act like they want to go to war with Russia, but they still have 30 to 40% of all of their heating and stuff coming out of Russia to date. Still, they want to shut it
Here's a
all
lump
off.
of coal, and please, can I have a bowl of gruel?
Please, sir, more, please.
Please, take me back to the 1800s. Oh, can you imagine reversing your society like that? Especially in Germany, that's the worst. Like, why would you close down BASF, your number one, chemical producer? Not, I'm a fan of chemicals, but there are some very positive things for our life, and they experimented with a huge amount of things. And turning off all your power, non-reliable anything, and taking power prices doubling and tripling. Oh, by the way, I do have this. I got this from our water bureau today. Our water prices are doubling here in East Tennessee. So now, to use 1,000 gallons, it's going to cost you $7.02. And it's going to be on a rate at anything over 1,000. They're not going to say, okay, it was 1,012 gallons or something where you might get a bill. It's just you went over the next 1,000, so you're paying $7. Which I don't know if it's going to be 1,001 gallons and then you get a $14 bill or whatever, but they're saying that rates over the per 1,000 gallons. And it used to be like $3 and some, but they have a whole new rate sheet right here. And get this, the reconnect fee. So let's say your water bill gets cut off, like let's say you were traveling or something, you didn't have, it used to be $25 to get it reconnected, where they would restart your service again. And now it's $75 to get you reconnected. And if it's after hours and they need to turn your thing on after hours, it costs you $125. It used to be $25 before. And I can also attest that the water tap fees, like I was thinking about putting breaking into the main and bringing a second, maybe a water meter out into the middle of our orchard there, so we wouldn't have to run like 300 feet of hose. And back at that time, it was $900, and right now it's $1,500. So that went up $600 to install and put a new meter on the main, coming off the main somewhere, wherever you like to come off on your property. So the tiny little East Tennessee backwoods natural water from the Smoky Mountains for free, we got to pay double for now. Now, you can compare that with the rates for your own self. Now, I don't know how much 1,000 gallons of water costs you there, Ransom. I'm curious where you are, how much 1,000 gallons of water. $7.02 now for the new rate for us.
I don't know. I think it would I'd have to look at my bill, but I would imagine it's around $100.
For 1,000 gallons. Mute.
Yeah, I would imagine it's at least that much. I mean, because we're filling up swimming pools and watering plants, washing our cars, washing our clothes. That has to be a lot of gallons adding up there. And I think I never pay more than $80, $90 at the max, even in the summer with the max usage.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, if they turn it off, there's no more farming,
Yeah, then you have to think of a way to get the creek water from your creek every time it rains and bring it into some kind of 1,000 gallon storage, something or other.
Yeah, and I was
We're
just
trying to do that too, thinking about the gravity feed coming out of like a culvert pipe over here to try to redirect it somewhere and maybe put it into a pond or something, because same thing. If you don't have water, you have nothing.
Yeah, I was just reading an article about
Ryan's got a big pond right across from him, all spring fed, like 6 different springs roll into his pond.
Right. Texas says the Rio Grande is drying up, so they're going to start drilling all kinds of holes down the Rio Grande so that they could get into the aquifer. And I thought you might find this interesting over here. There's this article that I saw that says the Trump administration is leaned on African countries. The goal, get business for Elon Musk. Now, I don't know about specifically for Elon Musk, but I know that if you're going to be expanding into new grow zones, you're going to have internet and an infrastructure set up to be able to do that first. And you can't do that without internet, because almost all of the companies, the oil companies, water companies, whatever it is, they're using things that they need to connect to the internet. They're using like sensors and they're counting stuff. They're using LiDAR. They're doing all kinds of stuff. It's very tech sensitive. They're going to have connection to the internet. And that's what's really funny. Like, you could live around here and barely get any internet, but if you move over to like Portales or Clovis or any of those cities that are in West Texas or Eastern New Mexico that are in the middle of the fracking and oil area, you're going to get the best internet you've ever seen. Your phone's never going to miss a beat. You can go anywhere out in the wilderness and your phone is connected. And the reason for that is because they want all of those workers to be connected and happy with the internet that they're giving them, so they give them priority. I mean, think about the massive amounts of acreage out there where no one lives, yet you can get perfect 5G internet and phone services all of the time. And so when I look at this article talking about setting up Starlink across Central, Western, and Northern Africa, that tells me that they plan on investing into those areas with not only internet, but the businesses that follow.
North Africa and the Sahel New Grow Zone. Hey, how many rattlesnakes do you see around your area?
Quite a bit, actually. I mean, with the odds, we just found a little Mojave rattlesnake the other day, which is the most poisonous kind, and is really not very populated around here. Despite that, we still found one, and that's the second in 2 years that we found. I made a short video on my channel with quite a bit larger Mojave rattlesnake, which is completely deadly. Our dog almost walked right on top of it. So yeah, I've seen them throughout time living here quite often. If you have cats, which we do outside, we feed the outside cats, you generally don't have a problem with reptiles. And even the snakes that I do see are generally in the garden, like a rat snake or something like that, or gopher snake. And those are friendly. So I don't want the cats really messing with them. So really the fight is to have the balance. I found out a long time ago here that you could use harvester ants to get rid of the gophers. So if you let a harvester ant colony start up centralized in your gardening area, the gophers are not going to dig tunnels into your garden because they don't want to meet those harvester ants. They're very painful. So they're just not going to do it. So you can use nature to get rid of nature, so to speak. You know what I mean? So with the first year I did farming, the little gophers ate everything. Then a gopher snake moved in. There was less of them. Those harvester ants got bigger. No more gopher problems. Don't even have to put the little landscaping fabric or whatever under it because you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I thought those things were crazy. Like, I hadn't seen them before. And when you and I were up with Diamond's thing up there at LeakCon back in the day, I'd come out of the hotel and I was just going for a walk, and there was this big empty field, and all of a sudden I saw these things popping up looking at me, and I was like, what are those, man? I'd just gone down to the shop and eaten a bunch of gummies, and I was like, what are those things, man?
The prairie dogs.
Look at it. Yeah, prairie dogs. I'd never seen them before. Fascinated by those things. So I sort of walked out in the field to get a closer look, and phew, they're gone under their holes there, But
right.
It's an exciting afternoon, I guess. Like, imagine seeing a species that I just literally had never seen those in my whole life ever. Wild. And I was like, going to Africa and seeing a wild animal for the first time ever. Now, I know some of you are laughing at me going, "No, you never saw one of those." Like, what the hell? But for me, it was quite exciting.
You guys have them fat woodchucks out there where you lived, right?
Yeah,
Beavers,
the occasional beavers and stuff. Yeah. Meet Simon. Who is Simon? That looks like a squirrel.
He's going to give you the hantavirus and the plague.
Prairie dog with a hantavirus. Okay, great.
That's what they say that actor died of over here, is the hantavirus, which I remember when I was a kid and they had the first little thing about that. All it was spring, and everybody was cleaning up, spring cleaning. They got a little bit of that dust, and because it's a remote animal, more Native Americans got it from the reservation. So they started being weird with, like the natives coming into town and stuff because they were afraid of it. When the news could have easily told them at the beginning of that little outbreak that it was very common hantavirus in this area. It's always been here. And, different years, white people get it, but they didn't televise it as much to make a big deal about it. So people thought that they weren't susceptible to it because they didn't live on the reservation. Then they would get sick. Gene Hackman, that's supposedly what they got, or at least he did, had the hantavirus. I think his wife too. And I don't know. People, they got conspiracy theories about that, but it is a real thing. And when we go out to these old, ancient cliff dwelling things, something that you find there a lot is a bunch of rodent pellets and ancient corn. They still find that stuff and eat it, and it's been sitting there for hundreds, maybe even 1,000 years. There's still little corn cobs surrounded by rat turds with viruses from the past. Or
Can you eat those things? Can you eat
the
those like
prairie
prairie
dogs?
dogs?
I don't see why not. Probably in the winter.
Why in the winter, do you think? I know rabbits here right now, it's out of season for them. You can only, generally consume rabbit here if your month ends with an R, like September, October,
It's
November,
because of
December.
the parasites and fleas are in the spring and the summer, so you want to eat the meat in the winter when they're not infested by it.
Yeah.
No fleas. Yeah, those prairie dogs are cool. I went out there and hung out with them, and they yell at you to get
Yeah, they
get
do.
lost.
Yeah, it was like the most fascinating thing. Imagine eating a couple gummies and then just like walking around, fucking thing popping out of the ground at you, like
Right?
what?
If a prairie dog starts barking, run. Yeah, they do. They get out there and they yell at you because they're a lot like meerkats in the fact that they're a communal thing and that they all raise the young. So any one of them is going to be like a mama bear and want to go after you. And you don't want to get bit by one that's got the plague.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be chasing those down. Meerkat. That was a video streaming service Ty Lopez was investing in, as well as the stuff with Twitter back in the day when everybody was trying to do. Yeah, the meerkat. I haven't heard that word in a long time. It's
Yeah,
almost
that's
like
something.
ostrich. When's the last time? We should get some ostriches out here on the farm too. It might be a little cool for them though in the wintertime.
They grow them here. The
Ostriches, yeah.
ostriches.
Arizona had it, the largest. Yeah, Australia in the early 1900s was the largest outside of Africa ostrich raising place in the world. Believe it or not, Arizona was. They had the largest ostrich population outside of Africa. Anywhere else on the planet was in Arizona.
Here, I
Early
thought this,
1900s.
you might find this funny here. This is the latest in scientific research. Chimpanzees use leaves to wipe their buns and clean up. We'll just leave it there. But that's
Poison ivy.
that's kind of funny. But if you're not growing the toilet paper plant out here, you might have a problem, and that's something that grows out here. And you can go fishing with it. I know you're not supposed to, but it does aid in fishing. But it's funny to me that that they're surprised that an animal might wipe its butt, and it's a breakthrough. So they're just like us. So you can learn from nature in case of toilet paper shortages, like we had during COVID. I'm actually looking forward to some kind of weird shenanigans this summer. I just think that they're going to pull it. I don't know if it's going to be riots or food shortages or hacking, but all of it's been predictively programmed throughout the last couple of years, building up to this time period when we're, kind of letting out these new systems. And I think the purpose of that is to completely keep everyone confused, just like that article was talking about, people all being confused because they know they're being watched at all times, and kind of a cabin fever affecting their memory, affecting their cognition. And then when you brought in that idea of the magnetic field and then just plain hot summers and you throw in a little social engineering, we have some good times coming. A little bit of that ick to keep everybody distracted. But you know what's funny? I can turn off everything and go outside and mess with my plants, and the world keeps on ticking like it always has.
Yeah, and then threw in price rises too, because I saw Walmart. They beat their earnings forecast, and then also in the same time they gave a warning where they're going to start rising prices about 30 to 40%. So if it hasn't hit in your area, just hang loose. They promise it will. They're going to raise prices across the board. And by the way, with that, just like I want to try to equate these two things together. Okay, there is a trade deal between the United States and China, and exceptions for some tariffs on some classes of goods. The problem is almost everything that was coming with that endless stream is going to be down to the very basic again of the factories that survived through that time in China. Just like in COVID, most of the mom and pop businesses went out of business. The way that business is done in America has been restructured. It's never going back to the way it was. And you see that we've entered a new economic world, and business is very different. There's big box stores, things are more expensive, and that's just the way it is. It's going to be the very same thing with the choices, that you were going to have products coming from China. The damage has been done. Those factories are closed, like the little trinkets of junk and bits of clothes and all this. It's not going to be coming as easily and as in the quantities it used to be. So if they're going to consolidate stores, or they're just going to sell out the rest of the inventory, and you will never see that again. This is the same thing. They're trying to consolidate and reduce the amount of goods coming into the United States. They've done it. It worked. The tariffs stopped that. So the amount of trade is probably going to be about 50% of what it was in terms of like the consumer class of goods. It's going to be shrunken about 50% from this point forward. So, well, you have to get a special allocation to get it. It'll be much more expensive if you do a special order. But maybe that was the whole plan too, is to, allow Walmart so much more control over the goods that we receive. They were allowed to get the pass during COVID and stay open. And now they're allowed to get the pass to get the goods first that are coming out of the trade wars too. It's just really weird how Walmart seems to get the pole position for everything. But the amount of goods from this point forward, those factories are not opening back up. And even though the hostilities have ceased for a minute, it is going to take months, if not 6 months, 8 months before those goods will be back on our shelves again. They have to restart the factories, which are out of business in China, and get the workers to come back and get the machines back in the factories to start producing. And then they can actually make something, and then they can put it on a ship and finally get it here after a month. So you got to go multiple steps back. And apparently, the amount of businesses that went out of business in the last couple of months, a month very solidly, 30 days, is hundreds of thousands of factories and small businesses went out of business in the last 30 days in China. So to bring all that back instantly, they need bank loans to do that. And the banks are just not giving out loans at all. Their financial crisis is way worse than anything we had. It's just being masked by the government arresting economic reporters in China. They're not allowed to actually report the economic news. And if they do, they're under threat of arrest it's a stock report, dude. It's an earnings report. They're arresting them for telling the truth about the collapse of the real estate market. And the money's just not there anymore to rebuild business. So if anybody thinks it's going to be just like instantly turn back on and in 30 days we're going to get all our goods back, I would challenge you to do like a really in-depth assessment of what things you might need. Because if you would have seen the devastation that occurred in China from this, they're just not, a huge amount of those businesses aren't coming back, which means a huge amount of those businesses that manufacture goods coming to the United States aren't coming back either. I mean, it's going to take more than a minute, and it's not going to be instantaneous in any way, shape, or form. And I'm telling you, absolutely, there's going to be a funneling and a reduction of goods that comes to America from this point forward. It's not going to be the same as it was. Just like our world before COVID, we're never going back there. The same thing with goods from China. We're never going back to that again. It's being cut off. Our oceans are being firewalled off. And this is the first shot across the bow, and it's begun. We are never going back to the manufacturing normal that we used to have. So please get ready for that. And I was going somewhere with the point, man, but I forgot. So please just take me away, man. I do like your soothing sunset picture there. Psychedelic sunset, man.
I kind of wanted to ask you about this too. Look, I don't know if you saw that article that they're putting out that's saying that they don't have any employees for like forecasting the weather, despite most of it being done by AI. But here, check this out. Wrong one here. Here it is. NOAA scrambles to fill forecasting jobs as hurricane season looms. And then here's this doozy right here. No, that's not it.
Yeah, that was it right there. Heightened risk for summer power outages. Ooh, there's your signal.
Yeah, and not only that, it says FEMA says they're not prepared for this at all. And then on top of that,
so how greater the signaling can be that they're absolutely planning something for the summer. Now, it's more. It can't be any much more of a big signal except like some fireworks in the sky, maybe.
Yeah, here's this one.
Yeah, can you pull out? Was that Drudge on there that you had that screen?
Oh yeah, I have Drudge up too. They are not ready. Well, we kind of knew that from last year, didn't we? That they weren't ready. And then, did that get big? Here it is. Change that to this one. And then on the World War III front, you have, I don't know if it's just a show for for everybody, for the citizens. But everywhere you're looking, you're seeing these, now it copies itself. This stuff. We got the Chinese supposedly buzzing us in space. You have sea standoffs. NATO saying that no matter what happens to Ukraine, they're going to put a presence in Ukraine. So no matter how, and by the way, Putin didn't show up to the Turkey peace talks today. So no telling where that's going. And then on the other end, and this is kind of why I brought this nuclear thing up. It's world's first nuclear resistant spy robot debuts for protecting U.S. missile silos. And then over here, you got the U.S. buzzes China's military satellites and unfolding space rivalry. And then, what we were talking about before, that you see the U.S. and China just shoving off all their old equipment to proxy countries. That's all setting up for a world war situation. And I'm not trying to put the ick or the distraction. It just seems like a plan of theirs that's unfolding, and they keep these cards. And then whenever they decide that one's not working, they play the other card. So if they can't, cause a worldwide fear of some kind of virus where you have to stay in your house and you can't buy nothing, then we'll scare you with nuclear bombs falling out of the sky. But either way, like you said, it's always that. When's the last time that you just opened up like Drudge Report and you saw happy family invest in something and gets rich, or people are so happy because they're gardening and they have abundance in their home, or any of those nice news stories? You just don't hear those anymore.
Yeah, can I throw one up here for you? Can I share a tab here? I want to throw up mine. Can you see my SOT.net tab here?
I think so. Yeah, Chinese weapons.
No, NASA confirms full-blown grand solar minimum.
Oh, there we go. Yep.
All right, so what you're looking at here is the forecast for solar activity all the way out to 2039. So if we look at the radial flux, or the 10.7 meter flux, gives you a better signature analysis of what's really happening with different layer in the sun. But if we look at the sunspot predicted, 2039 is like a tenth of a sunspot, one high, 10 sunspots. Okay, generally that's at the lowest of the solar minimums when we come in to almost zero sunspots, or you're coming into like single digits or barely double digits. That is what we consider the solar, just the regular 11-year low. And we should pass through that anyway, right? But notice where I'm going to start you up at 2039. And we got like one sunspot predicted, and the absolute high is around 10 sunspots. All right. But look at all that takes us 2039, 2040. And we're supposed to be coming off this one in around 2028 to 29. So as we progress through here, check out these numbers. So 2025, we're going to start to decrease, and through 26, we're definitely heading down into double digits. But when we get down around 2030, you see the sunspots are incredibly low. We're still only at like 25, 19, 18 when you get into 2031. So you're telling me all the way from like 2030 to 2039, we're going to have single digit sunspots. Is basically what they're saying. Even to 2031, 2033, we should be going into solar maximum by that time and ramping back up again. But here's where it gets weird. We're 2034, 2035, 36. They're almost at zero sunspots still. So they're already predicting in advance. This European Space Agency and NASA and NOAA, all of them, all predicting there's no ramp up coming. And you see 2037, there's still no sunspots. 2038, there's still no sunspots. 2039, 2040, there's still no sunspots. So they're talking about a full 10-year plus period with zero sunspots. That's exactly what happened in the Maunder minimum. And if it's beginning as we step off into solar lows, this time off the regular 11-year cycle, that could very well answer a lot of whys in terms of why these things are happening here.
You remember a few years ago, we were talking about that paper that they wrote that was correlating lifespan with sunspots. The lower the sunspots, the longer the lifespan.
They call that gravitational birthing. There's a name that the elite use for that called gravitational birthing.
Right. And we even plotted that out with the scale that they had of available sunspot history back until the 1800s. And when you look at the period of time, we noticed that, when World War II happens, a bunch of lower amounts of sunspots. So the people that were being born then would live longer, but yet you had hard times on the earth. And I'm wondering, if there is such a correlation, and that's true, and you're going to have all these children that basically may live a really long time because there was less solar radiation interfering with them during the growth period. Would then the elites also throw in really hard times on Earth to counteract that number of people that will make it and have long lives? I mean, if you just think about it, we have a population decline going on, but they want to further that. So it's not in their best interest to have a whole generation of new children born into the world that are going to live longer, maybe potentially, if and especially in an era where everyone's educated about the poisons that they're ingesting through the foods, water, and air, medicine. Whatever you decide that is, we live in that era where we're starting to become aware of that. It's the perfect time to pull a Library of Alexandria, and put us back into a Stone Age like mentality as far as the average citizen being extremely educated on any specific topic. Then you would get into this, the whole world's run by the idiocracy template of internet, the metaverse, where people are interested in things that are more fake than more real. And at the meantime, you have, like I said before, these small pockets of agrarian people that are maybe not going to live that lifestyle, and they're going to be the ones that also have children. So those children potentially would have long lifespans, and then they would also carry those attitudes and trends and know-how into the future, which seems like the exact opposite that any group of elites that I know about would like to see happen.
Well, then you have to also add in the advances in medicine that would prolong a lifetime anyway. Now, what Ransom is talking about here is in very low solar activity, the lifespan generally seems to be at least 100 years, if not longer, of people who are born during that very low magnetic field. And as he attested, and also the research I've done, those persons, when they get to about 20 years of age, there seems to be a global war that takes a huge amount of them out, specifically males. So when we had the centennial minimum, say 1895 right to around 1902, 1905, somewhere in there, a very low solar activity on the 100-year level. Those persons born then, you look at them all, like there's an enormous amount of people born at that time that lived to be 100 years old. But then right there, boom, got to send the boys over to the World War I through 1917 and 18 into the armistice. Like how many people died that were born in those years that were reaching the years of 20 years old, 18 years old, that were taken out on purpose? And then if you go further back in the past, or to what we could say now, would there be a global war sometime after 2050? Because if they were born in 2030, 2035, with the advances in medicine, with the prolonged lifetime because of a low magnetic field, shoot, I would not even kid you if I thought they would live to be 120 average. So again, would the world elite come up and throw some kind of war at 2055 or something to take out an enormous amount of them? Drone warfare, robotic warfare, AI, conflagration, or whatever it is going to be to wipe out that set of humans that would live to be 120 years old? I'm just asking a question because it just seems a little tricky. On low birth, extended lifetimes, there's always a world war or some kind of event that limits population after that. And then the plague came in that as well. The Spanish flu occurred at the exact same time, right after the war. And you're telling me that those two events dovetailed in to wipe out a huge amount of the population born that would live extended lifetimes after that centennial minimum came up around the turn of the 1900s. That's just some of these things don't make sense to me.
Well, yeah, and think about how if our magnetic field is collapsing, and that would pose a potential risk to not only humans but animals, plants, growing things. We might just luck out if there was a reduction in solar radiation coming our way during that time. I mean, think about if it was the opposite situation where you had high amounts of stuff blown at Earth while we're having no magnetic field. That would be a potentially extinction event for a lot of creatures, including groups of humans on the Earth. So we might luck out, and they might know that, so they have to counteract that situation with their own planned out agendas, which seems to involve population reduction. And
All right,
you know,
all y'all.
these weather things are the easiest way to not fall into the population reduction pattern. We know where they go year after year after year. These storms go to the same paths. There's no reason that if you live in a
Somewhat.
hurricane area, you shouldn't be prepared for hurricane, or tornado area, you shouldn't be prepared for tornadoes, or if you live in a potential flooding area that you don't know what to do. I mean, that's it. It always comes out to that simple fact: do you know what you're going to be doing if a situation arises?
Yeah, that pink right there. Go back that slide. That dark pink right there. That's going to be hammering us on Saturday night. They're talking about 70 to 80-mile-an-hour winds coming, sideline winds with these ferocious, I mean, incredibly ferocious storms coming in on Saturday night here. But plumb wild, that's such a Southern saying. Going plumb wild means incredibly just off the hook, crazy, beyond, like levels above, like a Six Sigma wild event is a plumb wild.
Yeah, we had a couple of burst off the sun. I think one X
Yeah,
something and an M.
that was far facing. That was on opposite side, or like on the limb, blasting off. It would have been earth facing. We'd have a serious problem with the low magnetic field right now. But that was kind of off the limb, and that's that same sunspot group that they see going around the backside of the sun. But literally, that is the only thing on the sun that is going to be active for these as it spins around for the next 2 weeks. After this coronal hole passes, if you look at the, I guess at the SOHO feeds right now, the coronal hole stream, after that coronal hole passes, I mean, it is just a flat, it's like a glass, it's like going through the doldrums, man. It is going to be flat glass on the sun up there for weeks. And that's the same conditions that allowed for that magnetic tear and ionospheric plasma penetration event over Spain. We are going to get the exact same conditions in about 2 weeks again. So look for something woo-woo to happen then too. In addition to this wild weather, a lot of this weather is absolutely electrically amplified. So if you think that the storms are going to be supercharged through, some sort of new current flow through the Earth's global electric circuit, then, you might be onto something there.
And you guys might get to test out your batteries in a few days there.
Yeah, oh man, I have everything out all the time. It's always wild weather here in the spring. Power is always going on. I live on the last power pole of the entire grid system here, and I'm on the last water main also. So I'm at the very end of both of those. On my property, I've got the last water main and the last power pole. So I'm gonna let that be, kind of a guide for you where I'm trying to live through all this. But I do appreciate you watching and staying around with us tonight. It's coming near midnight tonight, and if you do support our work here, buy me a coffee. Civilization Cycle, and please remember to sign up for that newsletter over at civilizationcycle.com with the show notes from tonight so you can share with friends and family. Take us out, Ransom. What's going on? See you next week. Bye for now.
Plan ahead. We'll see you next week. Hopefully we're all still here. I'm gambling that we will be.
I'm going to have the best week of my life this week. Oh, I'm so excited. I can't even wait. It's going to be the best week of my life. You got to get excited like that. Oh, yeah. Bye for now.